to another Mobile Monday event. My name is Mario Tapia. I kind of lead the Silicon Valley chapter, but we also have quite a few other volunteers. Is Jeremiah here? There's Jeremiah, probably 30 people. We have also Daniel, who's one of the volunteers. We have John Lynn doing our taping and posting to Ustream, so you guys can watch this later, or have some of your friends take a look at it. We also have Jose Mateos, who's also hanging around with photography. So this is kind of the close team here for Mobile Monday. So the agenda for tonight is essentially welcome you guys, and I have a small presentation. Nokia is our sponsor tonight, so I want to give thanks to Nokia for the pizza and great venue. Then I'll introduce you to Matt, who is our moderator for the panel we'll do. And then right before we jump into discussion, a few of them have demos, so we'll do the 3-minute demos, just so you have some context of where the panelists are coming from and some in the app that they've recently developed in HTML5. And then please don't leave. We took some of your business cards and we're doing giveaways. So Gregory and Robin will be doing some giveaways just right after the panel, and I'll talk about our next event at the end of the month. And then we'll do, if time allows, I'll do maybe 5 60-second announcements at the maximum. They'll probably be pretty late by the time we get to the announcements. But I just want to, okay, so how many here have never been to Mobile Monday? Yeah, you're like half of you guys all the time. Okay, so how many of you know what Mobile Monday is? I don't know if the group itself or okay, so I'll briefly this thing. So basically, we're basically a large international group. We're global, we're in a lot of countries and a lot of the major cities. So there are folks just like you and definitely around the world, and they have a big passion for mobile. The history here is founded in 2000 with a group in Helsinki. We're now running in pretty much all the continents. We've got about over 100,000 members and about 80, I think the 80 is now 100 cities plus. And in 2010 we had around 900 mobile events. So pretty much a very large network of folks interested in mobile. What we do is we do some high impact events. So as you can see, it's a pretty large crowd. I bet the whole cross section of the ecosystem is represented here, from developers, VCs, entrepreneurs, etc. So these are kind of the list of some of the locations in different cities. So when you guys are traveling abroad, take a look. There might be a Mobile Monday chapter having an event in your area. This is what the American network is like. So basically, we're pretty much a grassroots, all volunteer, nonprofit trade. So none of us get a paycheck. It's all volunteer work because we like what we do. We're in quite a few cities. So we're in Austin, Boston, Dallas, Denver, New York, Silicon Valley, Washington D.C. So it's a pretty good stretch of cities. Also Seattle as well. So here's one of our previous sponsors. So we pull some big big names, as well as some small startups. Here's our sponsorship package, but we have more to come on that. This is our current website in production, and then I have Jeremiah here. So when are we going to roll out the next one?
Tomorrow.
Okay, cool. So this will all change tomorrow. But it looks like I've seen the new stuff, and actually it's really awesome. But for now, it's pretty much going to have the same type of feature sets. You're going to have an about, calendar of events. You're going to have a mechanism to join. You can submit an app. So basically, we do a lot of demo nights, and we actually have 2 demo events in September. So you may want to submit your app. One is we're doing a location-based event, and also doing just a big generic what's new type of demo night. So if you are interested in having having your app demoed, please submit your app there. We also are open to topic ideas, so as trends change, we can put your topic listing there. And also, thanks to John, we have videos. So I think pretty much the last 12 events we have videos for, so we've been doing this for over a year now. And it's posted on Ustream, so you can always catch up if you miss an event. And I think I've had folks from France email me saying, hey, I'm going to be in France, but I'm going to miss it. When is it going to be posted? Kind of interesting. So I asked a couple of questions when you guys registered. So here's some of the data. So here is which phone do you currently use, and who's from Palm here? So they were pretty vocal about this, about not being able to select their platform and say that, oh, I have to lie on this. So basically, I opened it up and okay, maybe there's some of the Microsoft people that get some flaming emails. But I should definitely grow this, and it'd be interesting to see this how essentially how this demographic changes over time. But yeah, so most of you are iPhone people with growing Android population, and RIM is yeah, pretty much wow, it's interesting on the size there. And there's Symbian folks, so Nokia is definitely and also I asked what your role was, and so hey, we got some guys that are VC, so there's money here, right? Okay, who's got the money? Bring it in. And this is interesting because this demographic, this graph analysis actually changes every month, and it really depends on the topic. So we did HTML5, and wow, all the developers came out, right? But if I do something on monetization, etc., I might get you guys with more of the product and marketing folks. But so this is interesting. Definitely a lot of developers here tonight, product folks, and media journalists, and bloggers, and a lot of biz dev guys. And I asked you, this is your first time attending, so just less than half of you guys are first time attendees. And this has been pretty consistent over the last year since we've taken the metrics. I asked you why you're attending, and so 60 of you need a job. So who needs a job? Okay, who's hiring? Okay, so yeah, see, it's a good mix here. I should ask you know who's hiring and see what that number looks like. But a lot of you wanted to do some networking, and also a lot of you are here to learn, this is definitely in the mission of Mobile Mondays. We're here to educate about the industry and also new technologies. So if you were a developer, this is an optional question. You know, what platforms would you support? So as an HTML5 event, we had some HTML5 in here. But cool. So you have here it says iOS. You have Android, Windows Mobile. You have your HTML5. So HTML5 is a lot stronger than most of the other platforms. BlackBerry, Symbian, and WebOS. So at least I'll be really curious to look at Windows Mobile and WebOS over time, and really see what happens with BlackBerry and Symbian. I don't know what's going to happen there. Maybe go down, maybe go up. We'll see. If I had a choice to build apps for one platform, it would be. So the question here is like, okay, so which one do you want to build? This is web apps, guys. So definitely more of you selected web apps if you had one choice. That's interesting. I know you're for an I thingy and also for an Android thingy. So this is interesting, especially about tonight's event. So it looks like a lot of you are really interested in web apps. Okay, so if you were publishing an Android app, you know, which app stores would you select? And I put obviously my plugin for GetJar, and then I have Android Market and Amazon. And honestly, I wanted to tell you guys this should be all the same, because if you really want publishing your app, what you want is audience, right? And the more distribution channels you have, the more eyeballs are looking at your app, the more likely you're going to download it. So it doesn't really make it as if you're a developer and have no marketing team. So here's some word of advice: free marketing is like the attitude store. That improves your odds of it being downloaded and also gets it into a larger audience distribution. So the other one is: are you planning to use HTML5 for mobile experience? And the majority of you said yes. And then I asked what kind of topics for the future. Definitely monetization and marketing, how to make money. And this is interesting. So a lot of you guys felt pretty strong about that. A lot of you guys also strong about demo nights, mixers, just social, and technical stuff. So this is obviously because I think a lot of you guys in the audience are developers. definitely sided toward the technical and API stuff on the wall. You know, we have done this in the past, a long time ago, but maybe we might see some specific, maybe a hackathon. Are you guys would be interested in a hackathon or lots of free gifts? It's not important. But definitely we are planning some more mixers. So is Artie here? Artie Merritt? He's kind of shy. Artie's in here. But Artie Merritt's are kind of like our social chair. He's planning 2 types of events along with Jose. Those are our CEO dinners, and also, which is about 20 people or less, very invite-only type of events. And then we also have our mixers that we're planning. So we're trying to get some type of sponsorship package around, you know, what does this look like, and you know, get everyone to meet at a bar and get a couple of drink tickets for socializing. So definitely that's where we'll cover the mixers there. And that's about it. Check us out at mobilemonday.us for more information. So next on the agenda is Nokia. Let's see if Chance right here. Pull this stuff up.
Hey guys, for those of you that I didn't meet, I'm Chance Arrington. I head developer marketing for North America here in North America at Nokia. And I'm not going to take up much of your time. I know you guys came to hear these guys talk. We were really excited to sponsor Mobile Monday. We've actually sponsored you guys all over the country, all over the world. I was trying to think back. I think this is my 17th Mobile Monday in the last 12 months. My trainer has another day called Terrible Tuesdays that normally follow the Mobile Monday meal. So I am a regular Mobile Monday-er, and I absolutely love it. Love everything that happens here. Just wanted to talk real quick about what we have going on. As I'm sure everyone here is aware of, we've recently partnered with Microsoft to start bringing Windows Phone devices to North America and the rest of the world here. And you're going to be seeing a lot more of that come out from us in the next couple months, including some very amazing hardware, which we were showing around earlier. If you didn't get a chance to see it, come by and check out the little table outside afterwards. But just wanted to let you guys know we do have a party that we're also throwing with Mobile Monday at the end of this month. It's on the 25th, and it's, you know, you Mobile Monday people have the first dibs on invites, so please RSVP. There's tickets out on the front, and we look forward to what you guys bring with web apps and HTML5 to the main platform with Windows Phone. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Chance. Yeah, so if there's a table outside, pick up one of these. Has more information. Or down. There you go. So whatever you see on the screen is this. So it's August 25th, 6 p.m. Free drinks, I guess.
Free drinks, free food.
And giving away. There's an Xbox launch. Nice. All right, cool. Any giveaways? Giveaways. All right.
Like $2 million in cash prize. Ironically, I'm not kidding. They're just for another development competition that we had. So.
Nice. Cool. Well, but thanks, Chance. Thanks for the So I'm gonna introduce our moderator, and we also have I'm gonna introduce Matt Asay from Strobe, and also you want to do the presentation right now before you come up, or okay. So there are 3 folks on the panel that we're going to do three 3-minute demos. And it's going to kind of show the apps that they've built on HTML5. So you guys have some type of context of what they've developed. So if you give me a minute here, I'll set it up. You want to start?
Yes, so hi, I'm Brian. I'm going to introduce myself in a second, but we developed an application for a tiny little publication at the University of Sydney called, they did some publication called American Review, and they came to us with like this impossible budget. And we've been working, we previously worked with New York Times and a few other big publishers. We know that publishers don't really have a whole lot of money, so we had impossible deadlines and impossible budget to deal with, so the idea was how do we create a pretty kick-ass magazine experience, but not get into basically building a native application, just to reduce some of the time. So the theme is the 9/11 decade, and so we're able to use like, here's the transparent pane that's kind of overlapping with it. We're using the JavaScript to do animation. This uses the iScroll library. But over here on this control bar, we can pop open, this is a native controller, so we built our own native application. And this is a table view inside here, so we're able to give context to the application where the user is actually at. So we have other controls like being able to launch a native mail controller and that sort of thing. So then the user can go through and swipe through and read this article. But everything you see in white is basically HTML5. So for example, I just changed the page in HTML5 and then I did a callback out to the native container to tell me I'm actually at the next article, Paradise Lost. So, understanding that magazines and newspapers don't really have a ton of budget, so we're open sourcing this. We're calling the project Ronin. And so you'll get everything you see here, which is both the native container, all the HTML5, as well as we created a brand new CSS framework called Hexgrid that allows the designer to actually lay out magazines a little bit faster. So I wasn't able to launch that by today, as I planned to, but it'll be on GitHub here pretty soon, so I can give you the details after. But short and sweet. Cool.
I've never done a demo like this before. I've usually used steroids. So I'll introduce myself now. I'm Craig Walker, Chief Technology Officer at Xero. Xero is an online accounting system targeting small businesses. Think of it like QuickBooks, but cool and fun. Yes, accounting can be fun. Oh, is that a bad thing to say? There's probably intimate people in the room. So we're, HTML5, very much cloud-based, and so when it came time to do a mobile app, I was pretty much experimenting around with HTML5 technologies, and this is kind of what we built. So this is a hybrid app built using CentralTouch and PhoneGap. I need to change my pin now, don't I? That's actually a joke because it's stored in the keychain. You can't log in with the pin on any other phone. We're quite security conscious. So Xero is an online accounting system. The app has been around for about 5 years. We've got like 45,000 customers in over 100 countries. But we're pretty much unknown. I'm pretty sure no one here knows about Xero, except for Brian, who is a Xero user. So the app is pretty massive, and this is very much and it's kind of washed out on there, but it's very much a thin slice, a contextual slice of what Xero is. So as a small business owner, being able to go in and quickly see what's happening in your bank accounts. We have automated feeds from almost all US bank accounts. Go in and see if there's any overdue invoices, being able to drill all the way through. So, you know, if there's an overdue, you might want to call them, or you might want to go visit them because, you know, it's if it works, it's nice to get a knock on the door from a debtor. And so this is all HTML5 using Central Touch. The phone gap bit, there's the keychain access with the pin, but also if you're on the go and you're wanting to, you've got a receipt, and so you want to throw away the paper, you can, you know, very quickly fill in some details from the receipt, and of course take, you know, a photo. So you can take a new photo, which it won't be much because it's white, or you can choose from library. And of course, this is where the phone gap integration starts to come in, but it's all very seamless within the app. And yeah, so it's very much you know, an on-the-go, contextual. You're in a car, you're in a train, sitting on the couch. Thin slice of what Xero actually is. So if you haven't heard of Xero, please Google it. It's Xero. And yeah, so that's Xero Touch in the App Store now.
It's much prettier than that. Hi, I'm Roderic. I'm the CEO of Nanocrowd, and we've developed technology that understands why people like things. So we do a lot of research from comments on the web to figure out exactly why you like movies or books or other objects. And what I'm going to show you today is a pre-announced sneak peek of a product that's going into beta. You can sign up on our website if you want. And it's a way to customize the way you watch movies. So we take all the knowledge we have about why people like certain movies, and we turn it into an engine that allows you to very quickly find the movies you want. So if you can see on the left here, there's a sequence of channels that are descriptors that we've pulled from these documents that we're reading off the web. So you may like stunt, speed, explosive movies, or anger, powerful, compassion movies. And as you select any of these channels, we pull up appropriate movies that you've seen or haven't seen all over the web. So the goal is to give you a customized view of the world. Of course, these are my channels that came out of a read of my Netflix history. Actually, my wife's in my Netflix history, so you'll see relationships, funny chemistry down here, and gritty officer criminal up here, and you can guess which one is whose. So what you do is you have a collection of channels that suits your taste. You can go and search through new movies and try to find one you'd like to watch. Select a movie, we give you the information, we'll identify where you can watch it. So in this case, it's available at a couple different vendors. If you want to have a more sit-back experience, you can enjoy watching trailers. So this is the trailer for 8mm, and it's in the gritty officer criminal channel, so I can also walk through and watch trailers for all of the movies in that channel. So a standard kind of feel to it, experience of sitting back and having a highly customized channel experience. But what's really exciting is that you can build these channels for yourself. So for example, if you like the movie The Godfather, we can tell you what it is that other people like about The Godfather. So in this case, we let you know The Godfather is not available, and then say, well, some people like The Godfather because it was a gangster movie, straight up gangster movie. If that's why you liked it, great. Pump that into your channels, into your custom channels. If you like that it was sympathy, morality, gripping, here are the movies that are appropriate to that channel. So you can create these highly customized channels. There are tens of thousands of them to match what you find interesting about the movies. And finally, when you sit down to watch movies on a Saturday night, you don't have to browse or wander through. Sorry, I did mention this was pre-release software, I think. So the last view would be where you can sit back and enjoy and watch a series of watch lists that tell you what's coming up and what's new. So I didn't talk a lot about HTML5 and Sencha, but that is the platform that's built. This is built with. We normally demo and everyone assumes it's an iOS application from the look and feel. It's not. It's all HTML5 and Sencha. So here it is in a browser on an iPad. These are screenshots, canned screenshots. Here it is in a Motorola Zoom, and here it is in Chrome on a PC. So we've just really enjoyed being able to develop a single set of code that we can use in all these various platforms. And you'll hear from everyone all the challenges with that, but it's an exciting world that we're getting. We'll be here afterwards if you want to talk to us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rod. Matt, it's all yours.
Alright, so my name is Matt Asay. I have a cold right now, so I sound manlier than I actually am. But do not be deceived. I'm going to have each of the panelists give a brief introduction, and I told them they're only allowed to use one comma in the 1 to 2 sentences that they use. So some have already done it, but let's go ahead and hear it again.
Yeah, I haven't introduced myself, so I'm Craig Walker, founder and CTO at Xero. The accent, by the way, is a New Zealand accent. I have moved here last week to start Xero Inc., the US arm of Xero. So I am very, very fresh off the boat and new to this area, so come say hi. Thank you very much. Mayor is very cool.
Well, I'm still Roderic March. I'm very interested in movies, but my background is all technology, so my life has been trying to figure out why consumers buy what they buy in a variety of platforms and formats. So that's what brings me here.
I'm Niels. I'm heading up products at a company called MocoSpace. So we are fully browser-based mobile gaming community on your phone. With about 20 million members. We're based in Boston. I'm from Denmark, and now I'm Silicon Valley. I'm Dan Zucker, currently at Nokia Research Center. I've been working in the mobile web for about 10 years in companies like Asay, Sony Ericsson, Wing3. I've probably been talking for, say, 7 years about using HTML to build applications. And it always used to be about 2 years away. I'm hoping now it's actually happening today, so I'm excited.
I'm Tiffany Brown. I'm part of the developer relations team at Opera Software. We make a desktop browser, a mobile browser, and a feature phone browser. We have Opera Mobile and Opera Mini. You guys can ask about the differences between those later if you're interested. And I'm actually pretty new to the mobile space, but what I do at Opera is work on mobile site compatibility issues.
I'm Brian Fling, and I'm creative director and founder of Pinchzoom up in Seattle. We're a mobile design agency that's helped the BBC recently launched their worldwide player. The New York Times, like I mentioned before, ADP with their own mobile solution. And I'm a 10-year veteran of the mobile space. I have war wounds all over to show how much I love mobile browsers. I also wrote a book for O'Reilly called Mobile Design.
Awesome. So we've got a great panel, and just kind of set the rules for engagement. Everyone at any time should feel this is your time. I know that everybody got in for free, but you're giving up your time to be here. So we would like to make sure that we answer the questions that you have. We have a range of questions pre-canned, ready for answering. But if you have at any time you want to ask a question, I believe that I thought there were microphones someplace. If there aren't, just come to the front and ask your question so that everyone can hear. With that, we'll go ahead and jump into it. Based on the survey data that Mario showed, most people in here, myself included, feel that on the eighth day God created HTML5, and it's just taken us a while to get to it. But that HTML5 is the answer to all of our problems. And I asked the panelists about this, and I'll now get them on the record. To what degree is HTML5 the HTML promise of write once, run everywhere a reality today? Brian, because I want to start with a very contrarian response,
It's a myth. It's a well-believed myth. I want to believe it as much as everybody else. But mobile is filled with hard problems, and there isn't a single solution out there that really solves them for you, like magically out of the box. This is the exact opposite of what I wrote in my book, where I said the mobile web is the only ubiquitous platform across all mobile devices. That is technically true, but it can deliver a real awesome app to customers on multiple platforms using one language, using one development effort. Absolutely not.
Niels, you want to respond?
Well, so I think the way we see it is, I would probably call it write once and one twice. On the two big platforms you have in North America, it's basically Android and iOS, and so a little bit Opera Mini and a couple of other platforms, but it's basically writing once and you run twice. I'm not as negative as Brian on the whole myth perspective here. I think for our service, we've seen a huge benefit on basically developing the gaming community on HTML5, and because it's all server-side, you can update the product as and when you need. You don't have to submit to any app marketplace, or when Android comes up with a bug fix, then you're all screwed because it worked before and now it doesn't work. Anybody who knows web apps, the big advantage there is you can just deploy overnight and things get deployed out. So having said that though, I think one of the things that we talked about before that is definitely a challenge is that there's still a lot of fragmentation. So for example, for us, on our Android user bases, we have probably 5 Android platforms that are equally distributed from 2.1 to 2.3x. And each of those have like some kind of bugs that don't work. So we probably spend half of our time that is kind of like in bug triage mode is for a given device, a given browser, and a given point in time that something doesn't work. But I think, having been in native app space myself also, that you do the same with native apps. The debug capability is definitely better for native apps, but again, nothing is totally easy. But so I would say run once and then run twice.
So mobile fragmentation not completely solved by it, but Daniel, go ahead and answer, and then Rod, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah, so I want to say, I think the important thing is we're really moving in the right direction. So as you just said, native platforms are going to give you the same issues with segmentation and fragmentation and so on. But HTML5 is really moving in the right direction, where you see vendors are taking standardization very seriously. The fact that most of the major platforms are using WebKit or a couple of engines out there means that generally things are pretty much the same. And I think the demo we just saw from Roderic was really proof that they wrote one app in HTML5 and it looks the same everywhere. So today you always have those little rough spots, but I think we're definitely moving in the right direction here.
But so, question for Rod and Craig. You both showed, and Brian, but we're going to go Rod and Craig on this one. You both showed fantastic demos, but for the people here, especially for the developers that either are just starting with HTML5 or maybe they're well into it, you showed these fantastic demos. Give us an idea of some of the pain that you went through to get to that polished product that you were showing up there. Maybe Rod first, and then Craig.
Sure. Well, there no question there are a lot of technological hurdles to get to where we already are, and there are more to come. So, for example, on the Zoom, although we showed the demo there, the Android doesn't yet support viewing on a variety of platforms, so you can't watch movies on Netflix or Hulu or Crackle. So there is still a lot to be done. So from a technical perspective, you can do the work to build the underpinnings, and then you sort of hope that the platform catches up with where you are, and that's where we are right now. So great on iOS, great to have a web app that we can sell through, or use phone app to sell through the App Store. So from a technical standpoint, I think the world is catching up. The one area that we worry about a lot is discovery. Is how will people find web apps? And we've talked about this a little bit beforehand, that no matter how good a job you do from a technical standpoint, if people look for applications in the App Store, it's still an App Store game. So that's an issue that we have yet to face.
I think you've got WebKit as kind of that dominant platform, and I think when a lot of people come to see mobile as opposed to say desktop as being this right one to run everywhere, because they see WebKit everywhere, and I get a lot of developers come up to me and say, desktop web developers, and say, there's no iOS 7, but there is Windows Phone 7, and that's pretty much the same. So you've got problems, and the big thing is you saw demos today on iOS, and the issue becomes less of the, well, it's a technical one, but it's more of a user experience one. So I often approach, I approach everything I do from a user experience standpoint, and we can get a great experience on iOS. It degrades quickly on Android, degrades even further on BlackBerry. It's starting to get better, and it will get there over time. But you just start playing with things like we had problems with, because we've got a lot of forms. So using HTML5 forms, that's great, but you can't control the keyboard very easily. And so trying to control the keyboard was a pain. So we started writing native-like controls in pure HTML to try and simulate a certain experience that users come to expect. And then trying to do that in a way that feels native and is as fast as native. I think they're the kind of barriers you get to. And one of the benefits, obviously, that we had is, the two of us, is that we used the framework to build out a lot. And so if you don't start with a framework, then you're having to handwrite a lot of code to get to where you need to be. How do you define HTML5 is kind of the next thing. And a lot of the problems are not purely HTML5, it's more around mobile web in general. So you've got a lack of scroll support, so overflow scroll, lack of fixed positioning. You've got mixed use of hardware acceleration in CSS3. You've got a lack of touch support, multi-touch support at all other than iOS. And so trying to really deliver native-like true experiences is where it starts to get, you start to hit areas where it gets really, really hard, and you're having to kind of hack a lot to make it work.
Okay. And so Tiffany, kind of stepping back a little bit, I can't remember if it was Craig or Rod that mentioned WebKit, and I'm going to throw you some red meat. The W3C is trying to drive standardization of device APIs. The reality is WebKit looms very large in this whole discussion. Should people just develop against WebKit as the de facto standard, or?
I'm going to say no, for obvious reasons. There's a philosophical debate, and if your business requires, in the rich world, in Europe, in North America, WebKit kind of runs the world. In developing countries, even if you go across the border to Mexico, Opera Mini at least has a pretty strong presence. So if we're talking about smartphone users and supporting advanced platforms, you can use WebKit for now. I would not count Windows Mobile out yet. I would not count some of anything can happen. I wouldn't count these platforms out yet. But if you're developing for a global audience, you really do have to take other rendering engines into account. So I'm not going to say develop for WebKit only, but if your business requirements allow, that's why you can.
Dan?
Well, I was going to actually ask Tiffany or Roderic. So everyone is following the same standards. So there's this big standardization process. W3C is really rigorous about it. So there are standards out there. So it seems like we don't really have to develop from one platform or another. I mean, WebKit is, honestly, it is the default. So you're probably going to be safe. But even within WebKit, I mean, depending on when you grab the tree or what your device porting layer is, there are a lot of differences there. So again, it's not a question of what platform, but just go with the standard.
I also want to add really quick, the mobile web has always been and always will be about fallout, right? So you can't guarantee experiences, and that's what the web is supposed to be about too, right? And that's the tenets is that, what was it? Saturday was the 20th anniversary of the World Wide Web, right? And the first page that Tim Berners-Lee created still works on all browsers and still works on all mobile browsers. And when you develop for the web, if it doesn't work on Opera Mini or Opera Mobile or even on a dumb feature phone, then you didn't do it right. And so there should always be this degrading approach to it, and that just makes it easier for you to debug. So you always have like this lowest common denominator, and then you start stacking your experiences on top of that.
I don't think there's such a thing as one web though. I think if you want to go after feature phone market, then that means building something specifically for feature phone market and say Opera Mini, which actually we did. But if you want to build something for iOS and Android, don't start with Opera Mini and go up.
I disagree, but I think there's ways to do that.
Okay, we better move on. We wouldn't want to have disagreements on that. So let's take a step back and come to a more fundamental question for the people in the audience. What's a slam dunk type of app for HTML5? If you would be stupid not to use HTML5 for X kind of app? Niels?
Yeah, well, so I can speak from our experience in MocoSpace, which is kind of basically like a social network. So I think any app that basically requires you to interact online with the service, it's a slam dunk not to make HTML5, because one of the big issues about mobile, we've touched about a little bit, is around latency and bandwidth, and that's the same for native or HTML5. There's no advantage mode for native. So I think like social network-like sites, I think another app that could be interesting could be instant messaging app. There's a couple of fatal flaws. So one of the things that is not available to HTML5 is push notifications or ability to run in background. So that's the reason why a lot of us have these kind of framed empty shells, and we actually have like all the apps you saw today was all native apps. It's kind of ironic, right? We talk about HTML5, 3 demos you saw were native apps with HTML inside, but it's still like in a native app container. So I think on the standard side, there's definitely a lot of work still to be done. And frankly, I think as it's been in the past with WebKit, it's really like has to be 1 or 2 vendors who's pushing that forward, and eventually the rest will catch up.
Brian, your company has built a range of different kinds of apps, and based on that experience, what wouldn't you touch with HTML5?
Well,
or what sorts of aspects of an app would you not?
Well, so, I mean, I can tell a short story. So we worked with AP last year, and AP is people that pays most people in this room. And so they have your pay statements for as long as you've been probably working. And that's a lot of data, and that's a lot of variables. And so we built a native application for them, and we were struggling to get their data into this application and not have the app crash. And we struggled with that for months and months and months. Everyone was getting frustrated about it. And then along comes the mobile web projects. We started building an HTML5 app for them as well, kind of independently. So we were able to translate all the data onto the server side and then render out HTML5. So all of a sudden we started to realize, well, we have all these different variables in the native applications. Why don't we actually use this content box that we already built to do all the heavy lifting, to interface with the data, and then just render out HTML5 pages? And then in one sprint, in basically 3 weeks, we were able to accomplish something we couldn't do in 3 months previous to that. And so the short answer to that is that something with lots of different variables, things you can't account for. That magazine app I showed you, to do that in core text is a significant amount of work. There's all these different variables you have to deal with, particle flow, that sort of thing. HTML5, HTML, markup, it's really designed to handle that really well. So it's really when you have this type of content you want to flow in. I wouldn't necessarily say if it's something that's online or offline. I saw a stat that's like 15% of all apps launch in offline mode. So so it's not always as black and white, but it is something that when you're looking at like web content, everything we've been using for the last 10, 15 years to really market this content, get it out there really quickly, that still has a place in mobile. But I argue that maybe it's not the only place. It's not the one solution. It's usually kind of finding a cross between what the native and the web there.
Follow-up?
But from our perspective, we're consumer people, so from our perspective, if your consumers are cross-platform, you need to be cross-platform. So if you're showing them media that they're going to be sit back on a couch and watch on TV, or sit in their bed and watch on iPad, or watch another platform when they're in a different setting, you need to give them access to that content from those platforms. So the world where you have an app that runs on a phone, you always go to the phone to use it is fine if that's their platform. But if your consumers have 3 or 4 platforms, you better hope you can do cross-platform. And that's why we picked the HTML5 as our starting point.
Dan, when we were going through the questions, you had kind of I thought, interesting, provocative take on this. And so there are obvious technical differences between building an iOS app, a web app, mobile website. Android app. But what's the real difference between these different things? Can you walk through the...
Sure. So if you think about it, really the main difference to the end user is it something you launch in a browser with a bookmark, or is it something that's on your desktop, something you launch with an icon? So that's what the users see. But really that's a very shallow difference in that there are many ways to make the bookmark look like it's on your desktop. You can just have the icon launched with bookmarks. You can use a hybrid app with a very thin shell that launches to native. So assuming you solve that problem, that both apps launch the same way, then I think to the end user, there is really no difference between the two apps. It's just a technology question. So you're just, really the question is, as a developer, what technology do I like better to build my app? So that's my answer. It comes down to the end to, as a developer, what's easier for me. To the end user, it should look the same.
Go ahead.
I think this would be slightly, if we're talking about apps, I think we can count widgets as a part of that space. I think of apps as something, as a developer, as something you package for your distribution. So if you're building widgets that can be downloaded and run on a runtime, I don't want to sound like a company show, but with Opera, if you have Opera installed, you can download Opera widgets and run it without having to have the browser open. So I think that's it's using the same technologies, but there's a manifest file that goes along with it. You have to upload it, and somebody has to actively install it. So I think there is a slight difference.
Yeah, and if I could just clarify, so I agree that difference is there, but what I'm saying is it's actually a very shallow difference. And what we're seeing is Opera widgets, and then Chrome OS has widgets, and Nokia has a web runtime, and there are all these technologies that more or less, and hybrid technologies that let you install web apps. So if you assume that exists, then basically we're just down to the technology difference.
So I would counter that a little bit. Like we actually have also a native app like most others. It's just a thin shell that's in the App Store, and we've seen a lot of consumers, like if they use our native app, they have a certain experience that when they click on links or UI elements that they launch from a native app, it has to be immediate because that's the way native apps work. Whereas if you're a browser, a consumer is kind of like accepting waiting 2 to 3 seconds. So in the native app, we launched both the App Store and the Marketplace. Like we often figured out that we actually have to think very hard and long about performance, preloading pages, and be smart about things because consumers are not going to accept that you click on a certain UI element and it takes like 2 seconds for the round trip to come back to the next page. Because in the native screen, you can paint the screen immediately. So I think actually there's a huge expectation difference. I think we also talked about this a little bit earlier on, like if you develop, for example, for iPhone users, a lot of iPhone users just expect that this website really should look with all the iPhone look and feel. And if you kind of do a common denominator with maybe an Android look and feel, or God forbid even think no a common denominator.
Well, I think the thing is when you deliver something through the App Store and the users don't care and are not seeing, oh, this is HTML5 running in that web view, they think it's native. They get something and expect it to work a certain way.
I also wanted to interject too. So don't underestimate the fact that we've dramatically transformed the behavior between what is a mobile web and what is a native application. I mean, the U in URL is uniform or universal, right? And so in a web context, there's a certain expectation that can basically do anywhere. But in an app-like context, that isn't the expectation. That's the opposite of the expectation. That's a fundamental difference in how we sort of looked at the web in the past that we have to kind of examine. We don't really have a very solid answer to.
Well, and I want to come back to that because the uniform or universal experience for apps has been defined by, I think you brought this up when we were talking earlier, it's been defined by Apple. So even as we try to get away from Apple and we're talking about web apps and people trying to get outside of beyond the Apple tax, everybody's demoing on Apple devices, everybody's talking about superior performance on Apple devices, and we'll come back to that in a minute. I think there was a question down here.
Right, so I think that there is a look and feel on Apple that people find easy to use, but when you look at an iPhone, it's a one-button device. When you look at an Android phone, it's a 4-button device. And when you look at a BlackBerry, it's got a full keyboard. Some Android has full keyboard, some doesn't. I think there's a different look and feel for each of these platforms. I'm just restricting myself to what's considered a smartphone. I think HTML5 is catching up to what's available as hardware resources for mobile, but can you speak to look and feel issue? Because HTML5 kind of flattens everything, and I'm an Android developer and I have a certain expectation, and while your app looks like it's really easy to use, the whole tablet thing is completely new and different. And what looks good on an Android tablet may or may not run quite the same on my Android phone. It may not be comfortable on my phone. And how do you consider that? Or are you just forging ahead?
Can I? Sorry, I mean, when we decided to go with HTML5, it was very important to us that even though we were targeting primarily WebKit, that did work on a certain set of devices, primarily iOS and Android. There is no, you know, the old HIG way back in the day stated that all Mac apps need to look a certain way and need to have buttons here and there and everything. But the HIG in iOS world is an app can be anything and look like anything as long as it's easy to use, as long as it's obvious in how you use it. And I think that applies to other platforms. You often hear about people wanting to rewrite their UI or provide specific UI elements for Android as opposed to iOS because of things like the back button. It was very easy to support the back button. And we've got a single page app that has history URL support, and the back button works perfectly. In PhoneGap, we just fire the back button event and it all works. For our users, we never got, you know, we've actually got 50-50 between iOS and Android users, and they've never said this looks like an iPhone app. They've primarily said as long as the back button works, I don't really care, because the experience is very obvious. And then we apply like Windows Phone 7 is something different again, and a really cool, potentially UI experience. But I don't think anyone has said this has to be how it looks. You can define your own UI.
And I totally agree with you. As a designer, thank you for asking that question, because I think it's an important question.
Your app doesn't have to look like setting screen.
So I can tell you. Oh, sorry.
Repeat the question.
So the question, she's asking about the complexity of the microphones right there.
Sorry, I interjected because Apple is really strict about what they allow on their App Store and how things look. It may be intuitive, but they are pretty strict, and they will reject apps without giving good reasons.
So one of the things that I hate when people underestimate it. So in the Apple Human Interface Guidelines, or the HIG, there's 100 different interface elements. There's over 20 different types of view types. There's 18 different types of animations, right? This is just on one platform. So Android has almost the same ones, but Android doesn't have Human Interface Guidelines. It's not documented in any place. There's no toolkit. There's no CSS template we can find. Ascension Touch doesn't have an Android one. jQuery for mobile doesn't have one. We don't have those good tools. The BlackBerry's even works. Windows Phone has some. WebOS actually has some pretty good design tools. But this design language is what the user is accustomed to, and when we create applications, web or native, we have to follow those same rules. This is the context in which we solve tasks, right? So we use these tools to be able to do that, and we can customize it, right? Which I think is getting to your point. In Android, we just don't have really good tools, and I think there's a massive opportunity for people that are building those types of tools, like Ascension, like jQuery for mobile, to start constructing a broader design language that kind of helps us, builders and creators of these experiences, do something that's appropriate in that device context, understanding that it's going to get more and more friendly.
So that actually, I guess, Brian, maybe completely answer. Well, I can ask for a further opinion on that. Is tooling? What's the state of HTML5 tooling? I'm not hearing great from Brian. I'm hearing it kind of sucks, but and I'm seeing nodding of heads, including from HTML5 Pro.
Yeah, I mean, from a mobile perspective, it's immature. It's in its infancy. You know, my process. So debugging, for instance, just picking something. I'll use Safari Desktop to do most of my debugging because it's similar. It's most similar to the mobile WebKits. Chrome is just too hardcore, and so I'll do that. And then there's when you put it actually in PhoneGap, or you put it just in a simulator or onto a phone. At that point, there are tools like Wiener. Or winery, depending on how you want to say it.
That's
Wiener.
right.
I don't know how that translates from a New Zealand accent. We tend to drop the R's at the end of. Wiener's really good. It's basically remote debugging WebKit. So you attach to a WebKit and you can remote debug on your desktop. It's part of PhoneGap now, and it's pretty awesome. The thing is that the simulators, if you want to run lots of simulators, you're going to have to run multiple OSs because they don't all run on Mac. So you've got Mac and Windows running and VMs running, and you're going to have phones because you do something and it works beautifully in a simulator, and you turn on a phone and it just doesn't work at all. And so tooling is part of the problem, and testing is another part of the issue.
Okay, Niels' response, and then we'll
So maybe kind of to a little bit share with one thing. Another thing you have to consider is we ran into that. We have about like 2/3 of our consumers on Android and 1/3 on iPhone. But as I said before, the Android is like a wide spectrum of different devices. So we have like low-end Android devices, 2.1 made from a prepaid carrier for $99. It has like a 400 megahertz CPU. And you try to put in some like fancy JavaScript in there with like a 150 kilobyte file, and you wait for 10 seconds for the browser to try to
Do you get even 2.1 to really run? Because 2.1 is awful.
No, devices that you are selling like on $2.1 devices. So I think one of the things you also have to consider is HTML5 sounds great, but a lot of these small little details that we have to be very careful about. And stuff like that, for example, like understanding the performance of the rendering of the JavaScript engine on the browser. You don't discover that at all on Safari on your desktop because everything is lightning fast. Even on an iPhone, on the integrated or when you consume on a real device, and then waiting 10 seconds for all.
Yeah, you don't think about JavaScript engines anymore on desktop.
Exactly.
And you don't think about things like reflow. And suddenly you get into the web and you don't have a JIT compiler running on anything other than a mobile
You guys are depressing. I work for an HTML5 company. I'm about to commit suicide. Your question here in the audience. There we go.
Okay, it's not depressing. HTML5 being sort of a standard, as you're developing on HTML5, are you seeing not the complex apps, but are you seeing it's mostly conversion from websites off to mobile sites, right? Mobile apps. And do you see more and more customers trying to convert, if it's built once, right? Especially I'm sorry, what's the
Nanocrowd.
if I'm looking at that, I'm assuming I'm also seeing the same app on the desktop, Asay.
We're actually mobile first, so we're developing for mobile platform first using HTML5. So I think it is a little bit unusual to do that combination first, but we really do want to be cross-platform, and I think it's the future.
So do you see HTML5 creating a whole new way where people will start moving, converting their existing websites into a whole new cross-platform site?
Yeah, I'd love to say yes, and then everyone else would argue because it's a valid argument. So I think in the future, you can imagine an HTML5 world just like we always did, but what we have experienced is this total madness of disconnected devices becoming connected to the web. And when that happened, all those device owners started creating their own OSs, their own world, their own environment. So we were sort of on this path coming down, hoping that HTML5 would be the final step in the layer. Right before it came out, the device path went like this. So I think your question is completely valid, and it's a huge issue. How do you develop for hundreds of different hardware device platforms and screen sizes and screen layouts? And HTML5 cannot answer those questions. They cannot.
To me, that sounds like a design question rather than a technical question.
Yeah, well, it's not even
but to back up to, as I understood the last question, it's kind of, what are you seeing, generally speaking, are people just mobilizing their...
Right, is there a paradigm
that
shift?
question is probably better answered by one of the three on this side.
What I'm seeing as on the browser side is that people are at least with websites, people are again mobilizing content. And to answer Rod's question about how do you design for different screen sizes and resolutions, there are technologies coming. There's media queries, which you can use in just about every browser today. There are ways and techniques that you can use to support different devices so that you don't have to, you can be a little bit platform agnostic or a little bit browser agnostic with HTML5 and CSS3 in a way that unless you're using device hardware, you don't have to develop on the platform.
And to give some optimism, so HTML5 is really not, as from a market perspective, really isn't very revolutionary, it's more evolutionary. So change the doc type, go home, go back to your work, log into the CMS, change the doc type, there it's HTML5, right? Add a media query to it and target one device, right? And just start creating a unique style sheet based off that media query. And now you're actually starting to the road of optimizing your one content for mobile context. Are you building like an app, like kind of what we've seen? Absolutely not, but you can still make a really awesome mobile experience with your content. You can do that whether it's HTML5 or XHTML 1.0 transitional. So there's a lot of incremental steps you can take. They're very simple first steps before you start getting into, do I need a JavaScript framework? That's not HTML5, that's JavaScript, right? JavaScript, well, that's a whole other can of worms. But sometimes that, along as well as CSS3, they kind of get conflated, and we call everything one big ball HTML5. So.
Okay, so I want the panelists to be thinking in terms of cost, the cost of development versus native, and then while you're thinking of that, we've got a question.
Yeah, I had a question in terms of, maybe we can discuss, is there an impact, because mobile data is still not a commodity yet, and what is the implication of not having commoditized mobile data when your app is based on a server in the cloud somewhere, and you have to download it every time to run it? What is the implication of that versus a native application?
Well, with HTML5 and related technologies, there are ways of storing data locally. You can use local storage. You can use, depending on which browsers you need to support, you can use either WebSQL or IndexedDB is kind of in its very early stages. But there are ways of storing data locally so that you're not downloading everything every time you open it in a web app or in a web browser rather.
I think it's the same problem as if you've got a native app that relies heavily on the cloud. It's the same issue, and as stated, there is technologies available right now that means that you can write something that isn't always hitting the server. You can write a single page app that's completely offline on your, stored on your homepage kind of thing. So it's, the technologies are actually there right now.
Okay, so cost. Thank you for your question. Cheaper, more expensive, about the same between native. Brian, maybe start with you since.
It really depends. I mean, I've had mobile web cost 3 times more than native. I've also had it be cheaper. So,
just to be balanced, why don't you say 3 times cheaper? And I don't know if with Niels or Rod or Craig.
So I can say a little bit. We actually used to have version 1.0 of our native app. Our version was totally native. We didn't have any HTML with it. And one of the challenges we ran into as we continue adding new features to our service in the cloud, was running on a web service. Then basically we have to catch up with the native app and release new release. Ignore the bug fixes, that's more than nightmare. But we just like to keep up the features. So eventually that really became a nightmare for us and made us to make the radical decision, said like we really want to even for a native app experience, HTML5, just very thin shell, so we can really adapt as the changes. Adding on to while we want to change our product. And I think it's something you should not underestimate, depending on the business you're in. If you're not in the consumer-oriented business, where kind of like you don't know how things are going in 3 months, 6 months down the road, then you probably should think very hard about going HTML5 versus like a native app where you basically like opt out.
Yeah, for us the question is, not just the cost for one platform, it's the cost for 5 platforms. So I think we're probably working a little bit harder, taking a little more time building HTML5 application for our first application on the iPad versus iOS. But our hope looking forward is that the work for each of the next platforms becomes lighter and lighter as we move forward.
Yeah, we couldn't get the resources quick enough to build a team that could do native iOS, native Android, and we're a web development company that understands the web pretty well, and we wanted to build HTML5 because it's cool and fun, and so we put one developer on it for 4 months and got something out of it. So it's hard to really quantify the costs. I get asked that a lot. I don't know whether there's a right or wrong answer, because not too many people have written a native app and then completely rewritten it for HTML5 and can actually give you real answers.
Right. And so, one company that maybe has the Financial Times had a question on app stores. With, then I'll get to your question. What's the right strategy for you have some media companies in order to avoid the quote-unquote Apple tax, thinking about HTML5 apps, web apps, as a way around that. But I was kind of intrigued to hear the variety of responses on the value of an app store to each companies. And then Mario, in his introduction, was very clear that everybody should be in as many app stores as possible, just for eyeballs purposes.
The problem is that people have now got conditions with regards to smartphones on where to get apps. So they've got this fixation with app stores, and so they go to an app store. We released our app on touch.xero.com, so it's on the web right now and you can use it. And we got a lukewarm sort of interest. After 40 days in the review process, that's why I love mobile web, because I don't have to go through a review process, but we got into the App Store and had like 15,000 downloads of existing customers. But for some reason they wanted to wait for the App Store version, because that's where they get apps. And part of the problem is discoverability, searchability. No one's really solved how to search for a mobile web app. You have to build like a marketing site for Google to trawl it. And Apple has an HTML5 web app store right now that you can go to, but I don't think anyone here probably uses it or has used it. And so, yeah, it is an issue. And for us, we actually wanted to be in the App Store from a marketing perspective. So, yeah, that's a problem.
Question here in the front.
This is a developer question. So a number of the panelists have talked about building applications where they use HTML5 and whether it's Foam Gap or Sencha or something like that. And so my question is, when do you think you'll be able to do pure play HTML5 without having to rely on those other frameworks that are essentially, taking the HTML5 and exporting it? In the case of Foam Gap, it's taking HTML5 and exporting it as quote-unquote native apps. When do you think that time will pass? Do you think it will ever pass?
You can do that right now. It's called the Wholesale Application Catalog, and almost every operator in the world is using it, and no consumers are really subscribing to it. But operators tried it previously. It's not a new idea. It's just it has really taken hold with customers, and we have to keep in mind that kind of the app metaphor has been around in mobile for as long as we've been in mobile phones and you put content on. And then shortly after that, we had web apps. But a big thing is charging for security and access to device, things that the WAC does actually address, but it hasn't been getting a lot of momentum.
And in terms of technology, I know the W3C is working with, I can't remember the name of it, I think it's the device applications working group. There's a working group focused on getting native device APIs available. Opera has a build for Android. Ericsson, I believe, has the kit build where you can use the Navigator Gate Media feature and interact with the device camera, and there's some other device APIs that are coming, but it's in the very early stages. I would say conservative estimate, I would guess we'll start to see it within 1 to 3 years, and I think it will be everywhere that's active.
Yeah, to add to that, I think so. To the question, there's two categories. One could be all about distribution, right? That's one reason for going to the App Store simply just because it's a way for most consumers to live and to go to the marketplace or the App Store. The other reason, obviously, is like from technical reasons and device access. Like if you have an app for with photos, like photo upload on the web just doesn't work. Actually, Android 2.2 allows you to pick a file, pick up from desktop, and it's a really shitty experience. So there's a lot of these apps you see here, we have that also now in the app, it's really used to easy upload a photo and access to address book and all kind of location was something that was kind of like standard working on it forever, and then eventually like WebKit just push it out. Now it's like, and I think that's what's going to happen also. It's going to be one or two vendors kind of troll forward and say like, we really want like, these kind of features, and then the standard body is going to catch up. I think it's 2014 or 2016 that HTML5 officially should be signed off. It's like forever, right? Yeah, so something crazy about a couple of months ago. I think 2014 it's going to be complete spec, and it's like a lot of things going to happen between now and then.
I was asked at PhoneGap Day what I expected with CSS4, and I was like, actually, I don't think CSS3 has been ratified yet, so I'll wait for that. Nice.
Well, the cool thing about CSS3 is that it's modular around, so they're pushing out just a piece.
Brian LaRue at PhoneGap Day, and talking about PhoneGap 2, and one of the slides he said one of the goals is to not exist, and that would be a great goal for PhoneGap. Lots of vendors seem to be relying on that project to boost HTML5 as opposed to pushing it forward. I hope it's sooner rather than later.
Okay, we've got about 5 more minutes. Good question.
Hello. I wanted to ask about,
I don't think it's
am I supposed to push a button?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. It's automatic HTML5. I wanted to ask about audio and video streaming, playback effects. I didn't see multimedia kind of apps, but can you explain, are these easy? Are there lots of examples? I've heard rumors that Netflix is using HTML5, or is it just too hard at this point? And you'd say, what would your recommendation be?
Rod, do you want to take that since?
Well, we take advantage of the HTML5 player in our app, but we also do embeds from other players. So it's but we've loved the video of HTML5 because it allows us. We didn't have to build. I didn't have time to demo, but you can do the whole pinch thing and zoom and push it up to your TV set, and all that's taken care of through the HTML5 player. So for us, it's been great. It took out a month of things we thought we would have to develop on our own.
And W3C is also working on streaming as a protocol.
I think we have 2 more questions. We'll do this one and that's it.
So I have a question on caching. So how does it work from an HTML perspective versus a native? If you went to a website and you have to go to the back button, native would cache it. If it goes back to the web, what kind of performance differences are there?
So you have you can create offline storage, right? So you can create a database using JavaScript, and you can synchronize data into that. And you also have the app cache, which is usually just for static content like CSS images or maybe JavaScript files. So you don't do as many network connections. Typically, what you do is typically how we would create an HTML5 app is we want to have as minimal amount of network connections as possible, drains battery, reduces performance, eliminates all of it, right? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to create an HTML5 app that uses JavaScript to talk to JSON just like we would in a native application. Grab that data, pull it in, store it in offline storage, render content from that. We're not rendering up PHP pages or ASP pages, that whole metaphor, which is a table app. And we focus just on bits of the data that we need, and we render that on all devices in HTML5.
I think most of the apps you sort of single page apps, so that concept of a single page completely constantly being rendered through JavaScript. And so it essentially becomes like a native app at that point.
Yeah, my question is for laying out CSS for mobile web. You know, you can JQ Touch is optimized, the UI elements for iOS, and I know you guys were talking earlier, but I didn't get an answer. So, what's a good strategy or CSS? Is there somebody created a library or something that I use so that the mobile web experience is customized? You know, to individual devices like Android buttons and lists and all that. Or BlackBerry or iPhone.
So in
using media queries, but what's a good approach?
So in iOS, there's numerous CSS libraries that you can get. JQ Touch just being one of them that has all the like a CSS file that you can kind of extract and use for your own purposes. However, for Android and a lot of the other platforms, it's pretty much non-existent. You can get Photoshop libraries, and then you can get kind of an asset library with all the different controls, and then start to create your own based off that. But there isn't really one mega CSS library that has it all. It's honestly a project I've been trying to pilot for 2 years. Haven't got much.
From a technical standpoint, you can create essentially like a base CSS for your site, and then use specific CSSs for each device using some kind of device detection, whether it's server-side device detection or even client-side. And so that way you can re-render your site using CSS depending on which device you're specifically targeting. We did that for a period of time. We have an Android CSS just to switch some things out which weren't rendering quite as quickly as they are on iOS. So that's one way to do it. But there is no base library for it.
It's one of the reasons we will always use a framework, because I'm somebody I can go beat up if it doesn't work right on their platform and it doesn't look right on their platform. And that's been great. You know, you go and say, hey, it works great over here, but I just did this on the Zoom and look how it looks. And they go, oh, we're so sorry, we'll fix that. And that's our reason.
And that all, I think these answers assume that you want your web app to look like a native app. If you don't, then you just do what you would normally do when you're building a mobile website.
And I was just gonna say, thanks for the mobile simulator and for the Opera. It's pretty cool.
Okay, we have another question right here.
Hi, for Roderic, how much time did it took to finish the project? And wouldn't it be faster to build one iPhone app natively and another Android app natively than going through all these hacks to make it work?
I think the question was for Rob.
Yeah, it's hard to say because we're not iOS developers to start. So that wasn't a choice for us. We would have had to find an iOS developer to build an iOS app. So, but our the app you were looking at is less than 6 months of 6 man-months of development effort. So it's not something that's impossible to get into quickly. And I can't compare it to iOS because we don't do iOS.
Is there another question? Okay. Well, thank you. This has been good. We ended on kind of a positive note that it only took 6 man-months. For a while there, I was about to quit my job and go work for Apple. But there are lots of benefits that we didn't go through. What we tried to do is paint a very realistic picture of what it's like to develop an HTML5 app. And it's not all roses. There are some difficult things. There are also some fantastic things, which is why Facebook and Zynga and Google and others continue to invest heavily in HTML5. And we would encourage you, as part of this process, just to be wise about how you do it and go in with eyes wide open. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Raffle. You did a great job moderating, guys. Give me my hand here. So, we're going to do a quick giveaway. So, Gregory and Robin, the magic fishbowl. And then we'll do 7 60-second announcements. So the first 7 people to line up here by the stairs get to do announcements.
So, in case you're wondering what I'm giving away here is we're giving away 5 free passes to Mobile 2.0, which is September 1st. For those of you who don't win and you're part of the Mobile Monday community, just you either got an email or ping Mario, and you can enter 25, and you'll get a 25% discount. Sorry, I can't give it free to everybody. So anyway, we're gonna 5 people. Asay. So that's a $399 value. Diane, Malkas, Michael. Okay. Try to get it developed. Let's see here. Praveen, who's the CEO and founder of Wiki FM. Hang on to that.
inspire change, transform lives. Roderic. Okay, great. Okay, one last person. Try to cheat here a little bit. Okay, last person is, oh, this isn't fair. Telecom, SK Telecom, you guys can afford to go. This would be a free one. Okay, Vikram from SK Telecom. All right, okay, that's the 5. Everybody else, if you want to come, you can just type in 25 on the registration page and you get a 25% discount. Okay, September 1st. Thanks.
Not in the admin group, I'll send out to the admin group information on the conference. Cool. So also want to, before you guys go, don't forget at the end of this month we're having an event sponsored by Telefonica, and it's actually how to grow your market for apps in Latin America and in Europe. I think it's going to be a great event. We're having it in San Francisco at the Mighty. So that's at the August 29th this month. The limited audience for this venue. I think we have 250. I think we're already halfway through the sign-ups. So if you guys want to attend, it's free. Just get there quick. So let's go with our 60-second announcements.
So good evening. My name is Mark Birch. I was in Russia last month, and met with a number of companies from an investment perspective. And I'd like to introduce Max. He's here all the way from St. Petersburg, Russia, so I thought we'd give him a warm Silicon Valley welcome. He's trying to hire someone here in Silicon Valley, so that's why he's here.
Hi, my name is Max. I'm the CEO at CloudMac. What we are doing is cloud platform for HTML5 3D game applications. We use mix of server-side rendering and WebGL. Our customers are social games developers companies. I'm looking for business development person here in the valley, so if you know someone, please contact me. Thank you.
What company is that, Mark? What company is this for?
CloudMark.
CloudMark. Awesome.
Hi, I'm Jeff Haas. I'm with a startup called Get It Mobile, and we help solve the problem of discovery. We make it easier for you to get your apps into users' hands from the web, from Facebook, from offline. We're currently integrated with Electronic Arts, CBS, CNET, and the point of my announcement is that we have a free version for independent developers that will be live in about 2 weeks. And if you're interested in helping promote your own app, please come talk to me, and I'm going to give you a flyer and give you a bit of an introduction to that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Scott Ellman from US Asian Venture Partners. First, a public service announcement. If you're interested in HTML5, I recommend you check out html5live.org. It's an event coming up in November you might be interested in. If you're a developer who is savvy about HTML5 and also understands financial services, please come see me. We're looking for somebody like that. And then very briefly, Startup Monthly's Idea Accelerator is starting later this month. It's built up and kind of modeled off of Startup Weekend. So if you're interested in that, check it out on Meetup. It's Startup Monthly on Meetup. Thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Shekhar Manda. I work for Asurian Mobile. Asurian Mobile is a division of Asurian. If you guys ever bought a cell phone and insured it, we are the ones who provide that insurance. And what Asurian Mobile does is takes that insurance one step further. Not only will we replace your phone, but we'll also back up your data, restore it. We'll locate the phone for you, we'll lock it, we'll wipe it, and we are looking for really good developers. AsurianMobile.com.
I'm Shirley Lin, and since Mark is pimping for Max from St. Petersburg, I'm pimping for Beinto, B-E-I-N-T-O-O, and they're from Milano, so half of the teams are here in San Francisco. Give them a warm welcome. Beinto builds a gamification layer across the platform on mobile that helps you monetize really well, and you don't even have to change your code. Solid SDK already partnered with Fruit Ninja. So here's Antonio.
Thanks for the word introduction, Shirley. Yes, we come from Milan, we just moved here, have fun and lovely. And we released the mobile gamification platform. You can plug in several game mechanics and embed them in your apps, games or non-games. We released the platform specifically for HTML5 developers, and then you can actually monetize user engagement generated by the gamification through real retailers, our partners that are able to reach users by offers, and they receive them when they complete achievements or missions inside their gamified experience. We really work with games like Free Ninja. For example, we're going to gamify the web app of the city of Toronto, just to make an example of the variety of potential applications. And very good results in terms of monetization with CPM higher than $10. Thanks a lot for your listening. Bye.
So developers, Getjar is hiring, PHP, C++, back-end guys, front-end guys. Reach out to me if you guys are looking for a job. That's it. See you guys at the end of the month. Bye.